logic says, well, I should just take myself out of that situation and put myself in a situation that is more downstream. And we say the problem is you can't get there from there. Because when you've been living something and beating the drum of it and observing it and therefore activating a vibration within you that says I'm not free, you can't find something more free. In other words, even if you went to work for yourself, you would not be more free. We're not kidding you about that, because you can't get to a freer condition from a place of not feeling free. So what you have to do is, standing right where you are, find a different vibration about it. The other day, here's a good example. Because Jerry and Esther are free. They make all of the decisions about their life experience. All of them. All of the decisions. So the other day they were in San Diego, and it was a beautiful day, and they were sitting in the monster bus, and Jerry had done his part on the weekly tape process and had handed it off to Esther, and it needed to be in the FedEx box that day in order to keep their commitments to the people who are in the process, in order for it to get delivered on time. So Esther had said to Jerry, if you can have it to me by 11 o'clock, I can get it in the FedEx box by 4:30. And so he had been working and had finished it and handed it off to Esther. And now she has her headphones on and she's beginning her process. And she's sitting down now. It is a beautiful day. The windows are open. She can see sailboats going by. She's sitting in her bus. And Jerry announces, I think I'm going to take a walk. And Esther felt not very free in that moment. Jerry was going to go. Now, never mind that he had been working. Never mind that he worked while she was sleeping. He was going to go take a walk. And so Esther felt not as free as she wanted to be, because her own commitment was binding her. So she said, go and have a nice time. No, she said, go and have a nice time. And I will sit here in my martyrdom and keep my commitment. And as she sat there and she watched him walk away, he just looked too darn happy. He just sort of did everything short of skipping off into the sunset. She could see him, and then she saw him go out the gate, and then in a few minutes she saw him going by those who were flying kites. In other words, she could see him out there in the world having a very nice time. And then she thought, now wait a minute. Abraham says, make peace with where you are. And I am where I am. In other words, I'm not going to not do this. I am going to do this. So I have the option of doing it, which I am going to do, and complain while I'm doing it. Or I have the option of doing it and feeling something less than complaining while I'm doing it. And with that thought, in other words, I'm not going to change my action. It's sort of like I weigh what I weigh, or I owe what I owe, or I'm committed to what I'm committed to, or I am where I am. And it's not going to change this red hot minute. That's funny. It's Esther's phone ringing. I am going to do what I am going to do. But I can do it feeling bad, or I can do it feeling better. And so she sat there and she thought, there's no place better to be working than right here. Look at this view. And then she thought, I'm sitting in utter comfort. Look where I'm sitting. And then she thought, I have this magnificent machine that makes this such an easy job. And then she thought, and I get to listen to this life-changing information. And then she thought, I get to be part of delivering this life-changing information. And within less than 2 minutes, Esther had completely turned in her stream. And as she now is going with the flow of something that the two of them have set into motion long ago, in some cases even before they were born, as she gets in the rhythm of that which the two of them have been wanting for a very long time, not only did she have not a bad experience, she had a wonderful experience. She had a better experience than she would have had even if she had gone on the walk with Jerry with this thing that she needed to do not being done. And so what we're getting at is if you will stand where you are and still go to work like you said you would, and still dress the way they're asking you to dress. In other words, you can't change that, so don't even try. But say to yourself, but I can feel bad about it, or I can feel better about it. I do have control over whether I complain or whether I praise, whether I lean this way or whether I lean that way. And as you deliberately begin reaching for things that you appreciate about it, and you begin to turn and go with the flow, now here's the most important thing. All of the time that you were doing what you didn't want to do, you were asking for improvement. And your vibrational escrow is full of all of that improvement. But you were keeping yourself apart from the improvement because you were focused upstream. Now you're deliberately focusing not upstream, and you're allowing the stream to turn you. Now the stream is carrying you toward the circumstances and events that will give you what you are wanting. Now you're turned in the stream. You have access to the better ideas. You have access to the better employment. You have access to the self-sufficiency. You have access to financial independence. You have access to what you've long been asking for, but you are finally allowing yourself to go there because you get it that it's not an action journey, it's an emotional journey, you see. You heard us say earlier that you don't have to necessarily find positive thoughts and put a motor on your boat and get moving that way. You just have to stop doing the negative stuff. You just have to distract yourself from what's bothering you. But the trouble with that when someone is seriously ill is that not only are the things that have been bothering them still bothering because they still have the same rotten relationship, or they're still mad at their government, or they still don't have enough money, but now they're sick on top of that. And so now they've got doctors usually showing them x-rays or blood tests that cause them to point even more upstream. And so instead of offering less resistance after the diagnosis, they usually offer more resistance. And so that's why it seems so incredible to people to hear us say that you are such a short distance away from complete healing if you would just stop going upstream and allow yourself to begin going downstream. We would also like to say, and we're going to get really specific about your question, we would also like to say that the more your life has caused you, through its contrasting pieces, to ask for more. In other words, the more you've been sick, the weller you are in vibrational escrow. Jerry was so sick as a child, and his sickness actually served him. You won't meet anybody at his as well as he is today. But it was because his life experience as a child caused him to put so much more energy into vibrational escrow. And when he was able to release resistance, his wellness became exaggerated beyond that which normal people would live. You get a sense of what we're talking about. Yeah. So now to get to the specifics. So let's say someone has one of those big diagnoses. And your question is, so how could they be distracted from all of that? And we say it's a little tricky because not only do they need to be distracted from the illness itself, which is hard to do because it's showing up, but they have to be distracted from what caused the illness to begin with. And it would have been a lot easier to do it before the illness manifested. But the good news is most people won't try as hard before the illness manifests. Now they've got greater reason to be more deliberate about their thought. The next important thing we want to say is that distraction, and this is the reason that we're talking to all of you in the way that we are today. So many try the impossible. They say, all right, now after I've been practicing upstream thoughts for a very long time, and all the people around me are practicing upstream thoughts, that's kind of who I hang out with. Now, all of a sudden, on a dime, I'm going to turn around and start practicing downstream thoughts. And we say, no, you're not. That's not logical, it's not practical, and law of attraction isn't going to help you because law of attraction is going to keep bringing you thoughts like you've been thinking. So that's where making peace with where you are is so important. That's where understanding the stream is so important. Understanding your true legacy is so important. Understanding what your emotions mean is so important. So when you begin saying things to yourself, such as negative emotion means I'm upstream and softer means I'm turning downstream. So now you begin making this an emotional journey rather than an action journey. You begin making it about the way you feel, which means you begin making it about your vibration, which means you begin to allow yourself to turn in the stream rather than about action that isn't going to get you where you want to be. It's like we said to our friend just now. You just can't get there from there. So we teach meditation because it's really easier to teach people to have no thought than to have pure positive thought. So if you could get someone to just work on quieting their mind for a few minutes every day, that's really a stream turning experience, because when they stop thought, they stop resistant thought. When they stop resistant thought, their boat turns in the stream. That's why we teach things like looking for things to appreciate. Because when you look for something to appreciate, you can't complain at the same time. Appreciating is downstream, always. When you make positive aspects, that's a downstream thought. And so the distraction comes in by trying to get their mind off their sickness. It's always from your place of disconnection, from your place of fear, from your place of not knowing about the stability of your life experience. When you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and in alignment with that which is source, everything that comes from you feels good as it comes forth from you. And so, in time, with a little bit of practice, worse, better, worse, better, worse, better, worse, better, you'll get so in sync with the natural rhythm of who you are that you will be able to look at something that is abhorrent in nature. Maybe the behavior of your government or someone else's. Maybe the behavior of someone in your community. Maybe the behavior of someone in your family or in your relationship. And you will be so accustomed to be in alignment with source that you can see them in their behavior, in their condition that is abhorrent. And you will still be able to see them through the eyes of love, because you have discovered what unconditional love really is. Unconditional love is training myself into the rhythm of who I am, rather than responding to the conditions. Unconditional love is tending to my vibration first, and then experiencing what law of attraction yields to me as a result of that, rather than looking out into an environment and attempting the impossible, which is to control conditions. You can't control your children, have you noticed? And when you try, they don't like you. And you don't like you either. When you understand that they've got guidance within them, and when you let your dominant intent be to live your life by example, which is to get in the flow of that which you are and be in alignment with that which you are as much as you can. When you set that example for your children, you teach them self-sufficiency. You teach them the only place that they will ever really find freedom and empowerment. You teach them that freedom and empowerment comes from personal alignment, and then they can go out into the world without hating and without altering conditions, and they can live happily ever after, going with the stream, living out the legacy that they set forth even before they were born into this body, and that they have added to every waking moment since. We've just given to you the best version that we've ever given of how this all fits together and of who you are. You are source energy in physical bodies, and life is supposed to be good for you. And if it isn't, it is your doing. Because everything that you are living and everything that you are feeling is about only two factors: how fast your stream is flowing and which way you're pointed in it. And you've got control of both. Your life caused you to make your stream go the speed that it is going, and the direction or choices that you are making, all is well with you. The direction or choices that you are making are what are responsible for the way the stream is carrying you or beating you up. And now you know that. You will never again feel negative emotion and not know the simple truth that it tells you is that you are bucking the current of who you've become. In other words, you are defying something that you have already become, and you just can't do that and feel good. You got to turn and go with the flow. And all day here today, we'll chat with you about how to do that relative to the subjects that are important to you. There is nothing that is off limits here. Every question is eagerly welcomed. You will notice the perfect unfolding. And of course, you're getting the theme of this gathering, aren't you? The art of allowing. The art of allowing myself to go in the direction of that which I truly am. How good is that? You are pure positive energy children. You are very much in touch with your source energy. I'm working to get in touch with my source energy. I think we all do pretty well, downstream or upstream. Yes. I'm making a bigger issue of this than I need to make, downstream or upstream. Because when you beat up on yourself, it's always upstream. So when you say, I was wrong, that's upstream. But when you say, I realize that there are better ways of going about it, and so I'm not going to make such a big deal out of this because I want us to live happily ever after.